When we think about joy, our minds often rush to the moments we share with others. A celebration surrounded by friends, laughter echoing through the room, the comfort of sitting with people who know us well. And those moments matter. They remind us we are connected, that we belong, that we are seen. But what happens when the noise fades, the chair's empty, and the house becomes quiet again? What happens when you are left in the company of the only person who will never leave you, yourself? For some, that silence feels heavy. For some, it feels like loneliness sneaking in through the cracks. For others, it feels like restlessness, as if something is missing, as if you need to rush out and fill the quiet with sound, with people, with distraction. And for a long time, I thought that too. I thought joy was something that had to be shared, something that lived only in togetherness. I thought being alone was a sign of emptiness, of not being wanted, of not having enough. But what I didn't understand was that joy, true joy, is not dependent on who sits beside us. It is not waiting for the room to fill. It is not waiting for validation to arrive. Joy, at its deepest, is the ability to sit in our own presence and discover that we are enough. And here's the thing, finding joy in your own company is not about rejecting others. It is not about turning your back on connection. It is not about saying, I don't need anyone. It's about learning to say, even when no one is here, I still have everything I need to be whole. It's about realizing that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Solitude is chosen, loneliness is imposed. Solitude is expansive, loneliness feels empty. And the difference between the two is not measured by the presence of people. It is measured by the presence of peace inside of you. But we live in a world that does not make that easy. Everywhere we turn, we are told to stay busy, to stay connected, to stay plugged in. If we're alone for too long, we start scrolling, checking, refreshing, reaching for some sign of connection, as if our worth depends on constant confirmation. We equate being seen with being valuable. We equate being liked with being loved. And when the silence stretches out, we panic because somewhere along the way we were taught that being by ourselves means being left behind. I want to challenge that today. I want to invite you into a different kind of story. What if being with yourself wasn't a punishment, but a gift? What if the moments you spend alone were not empty, but sacred? What if solitude was not a gap to be filled, but a space to be honored? What if, instead of running from your own company, you chose to linger in it, to listen, to learn, to discover what has been waiting there all along? When I first began practicing this, it was uncomfortable. I remember sitting in a quiet room, no music, no phone, no television, no conversation, just me. And it felt awkward. My mind raced. I thought of everything I could be doing. I thought of people I should be calling. I thought of the emails piling up, the errands undone, the conversations unfinished. And underneath all of that was a deeper voice, a quiet but persistent whisper. Do you even like being with yourself? That question startled me. Because if I was being honest, I wasn't sure. How often do we stop and ask ourselves that? Not, do other people like me? Not, do I make others proud? Not, am I fitting into what's expected? But simply, do I like being with me? That question is the heart of joy in solitude. Because when you can answer yes to that, not with arrogance, not with ego, but with gentle acceptance, you unlock something powerful. You unlock the freedom to be present without needing constant distraction. You unlock the courage to face your thoughts without running from them. You unlock the possibility that joy can be quiet, simple, rooted in nothing more than breath, presence, and self-acceptance. And let's be clear, this is not about perfection. It is not about sitting in a room by yourself and feeling bliss every single time. It is not about mastering some kind of spiritual stillness. It is about being willing to stay when it's uncomfortable, to stay when your mind tells you you're missing out, to stay when your heart aches for validation, to stay because you know that joy is not something you wait for, it's something you create. And creating it in solitude means creating it in its purest form without needing anyone else to hand it to you. There's a paradox here. The more joy we can find in our own company, the deeper our relationships with others can become. Because when we stop leaning on others to fill our emptiness, we start approaching them with fullness. We stop demanding that they be our source of worth and instead invite them to share in what we already know to be true, that we are worthy, that we are enough, that we are whole. When you find joy in yourself, you no longer need relationships to complete you. You simply get to enjoy them, to cherish them, to be present in them without fear of losing yourself. And maybe that's the real invitation here, to stop seeing solitude as something to survive and instead see it as something to savor. To look at those moments when the world is quiet and ask, what can I learn about myself here? What joy can I uncover when the only voice I hear is mine? And yes, it will take courage, because it's much easier to drown out silence than to sit in it. It's much easier to reach for noise than to reach for stillness. But on the other side of that discomfort is a kind of joy that cannot be shaken, a joy that travels with you no matter where you go, no matter who walks in or who walks out. So today, as we explore what it means to find joy in our own company, I want you to consider this: what would change in your life if you truly believed you were never alone? What if you trusted that your presence was not just enough, but sacred? What if you stopped treating your own company as the last option and started treating it as the first gift? Because when you do, you stop chasing joy outside of yourself and you start realizing it has been within you all along. There's a certain kind of silence that makes people uneasy. You've probably felt it. The kind where the room is still, the phone is quiet, the door is closed, and it's just you. No distractions, no one to impress, no one to respond to, just your own breath, your own thoughts, your own presence. And for many of us, that silence feels unfamiliar, almost threatening, as if we're not sure what will surface if we sit with ourselves too long. We live in a world that constantly urges us outward. Outward to the next achievement, the next connection, the next notification. Outward to the approval of others, the validation of strangers, the noise that convinces us we matter. And in all of that rushing outward, we forget something essential. We forget how to turn inward. We forget how to be at home in our own skin, how to find comfort in our own company, how to sit with ourselves without judgment, without restlessness, without the urge to run. And yet, if we look back across our lives, we notice something. Some of the most transformative, grounding, and clarifying moments didn't come in a crowd. They didn't arrive when the room was loud with laughter, or when the schedule was packed, or when the accolades were pouring in. They came in stillness. They came in those quiet moments when you were left alone with nothing but yourself. Standing in front of a mirror, sitting on a park bench, driving down a long stretch of highway with no one else in the car, lying awake at night when the world was asleep. And in those moments, if you dared to stay, you might have felt it. That whisper of truth that only rises in solitude. That whisper that says, you are enough. You don't need to perform right now. You don't need to prove. You don't need to earn. You just need to be. But here's the challenge. Most of us don't stay long enough to hear it. We distract ourselves. We run. We fill the silence before it can speak. And we rob ourselves of the very joy we're aching for. Now, I know that the idea of finding joy in your own company sounds simple, maybe even cliche. People say it all the time. Learn to love yourself. Be your own best friend. Enjoy your own company. But the truth is, it's hard. It's hard because it requires unlearning so much of what we've been taught. From an early age, we are told that being popular, being surrounded, being chosen, being busy, that's what makes life valuable. Think about it. From school playgrounds to corporate boardrooms, we measure worth by who notices us, who includes us, who praises us. We're rarely taught how to sit alone at the lunch table and feel whole. So when we grow older, that discomfort follows us. We think solitude is punishment. We think silence is emptiness. We think if we're not in the middle of the noise, something must be wrong with us. And that's why the practice of finding joy in your own company feels almost rebellious. It goes against everything the world is shouting. It asks you to stop chasing, stop scrolling, stop filling, and start listening. Now, let me be clear. Finding joy in your own company doesn't mean you stop valuing others. It doesn't mean relationships don't matter. Human connection is essential. We are wired for belonging. But here's the paradox. When you can find joy in yourself, you enter relationships differently. You no longer show up desperate for others to fill you. You show up already full, already whole, already rooted in joy. And that changes everything. It changes the way you love. It changes the way you lead. It changes the way you stand in the world. But before we get there, before we can experience that shift, we have to ask the hard question, do you like being with you? Not, do others like you? Not, do you meet expectations? Not, are you successful enough to impress the room? But do you, without anyone else's applause, actually like being with yourself? That is not an easy question to sit with. For many of us, the honest answer might be, not yet. And that's okay. Because learning to like your own company is a practice. It's not a switch you flip. It's not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It's a slow unfolding, a gentle courage, a willingness to stay when everything in you wants to run. And maybe, just maybe, that's the invitation for us today. To see solitude not as a void, but as a teacher. To see quiet not as absence, but as presence. To see being with ourselves not as punishment, but as practice. Because joy, the kind of joy that anchors you, the kind of joy that cannot be shaken, often waits for you in the very place you've been avoiding, your own company. So here's what I want you to imagine. What if, instead of treating time with yourself as something to endure, you began treating it as something to savor? What if you approached your own company with the same curiosity, the same kindness, the same openness you would extend to a dear friend? What if, instead of running from the silence, you leaned in just enough to hear what your heart has been trying to tell you? Because in that leaning, in that listening, in that staying, you might discover that joy was never out there waiting to be found. It was always here, waiting for you to come home.